we think that the progressive people cannot reach its goal by begging or asking, you see, the peace to the imperialists. The only way to keep the peace and to safeguard your right and to protect your people is to arm yourself and to stand boldly enough against, you see, the US imperialists. Otherwise, the US imperialists can do whatever they like. After Korean War, now it is the 60 years after the war, Workers' Party of Korea and my government never neglected the building of our defense and arms. That is the reason why Americans cannot open another war in Korean Peninsula. That is the reason why Workers' Party of Korea has been successful in protecting its people and country. Otherwise, if you can see many reasons of the other countries, because for instance, Libyans, they thought that they can, if they accept the terms of Americans and British government, they can survive and they can, you see, preserve their existence. But things went the other way. Once Libyans gave up all, you see, their defenses, whatever, the next stage was to create problems inside of the country, and even the NATO and Americans organized a huge fleet of airplanes to bomb Libya. If you compare the country like Libya and NATO, Libya is nothing. But they arranged the modern technologies, the modern, you see, the airplanes and bombing methods just, to kneel down Libya. So that is, if you want to keep the peace and stability of your country, there is only one way, is to stand against, you see, the Americans and world imperialists rather than, conceding to them. That is what, you see, that is one of the reasons. I don't know whether you heard the recent statement by the Defense Commission of DPRK, which issued yesterday. The Sunday, we made it very clear about the purpose of our nuclear deterrence to the Americans, and also we proposed to solve the issues through negotiations and dialogue. Because many people are influenced by the Western media. They think that what is the merit of having nuclear weapons by DPRK? Why DPRK develop its nuclear program? They may ask, development of its own nuclear program could be the threat and menace to the world peace and stability. But the things is not like that. In the past 60 years, Americans, they never stopped the nuclear threat against DPRK. They even deployed the tactical nuclear weapons on Korean Peninsula in South Korea, like what they did in Europe during, the Cold War system, and still they keep it. If you see the nuclear weapons in Europe, many countries are against it. Like if you see the governments of Germany and Belgium and the other European governments want American nuclear weapons out of their territory. German people, Belgium, they all want to be free of nuclear weapons. They want to live in nuclear-free zone. But Americans still keep their nuclear weapons in Europe, which is quite against the will of Europeans. They want to extend the nuclear, their weapons, the station of nuclear weapons, as much as possible to worldwide. They want to build a worldwide network. The only reason for that is not to keep the peace of the world. What is the use of keeping nuclear weapons in Europe while there is no Soviet Union? Now, the Americans sometimes say that they share the same value with Russia. The only reason to keep the nuclear weapons in various parts of the world, the only reason to keep on nuclear threat against, you see, the countries is to keep on their domination. They want to dominate the whole world with their modern technology and with their nuclear weapons so that they can keep the world according to their terms, not according to the terms of the people of that, you see, the region. That's why, as far as DPRK is concerned, we tried very hard to stop the Americans' nuclear threat. Every year, Americans and South Koreans, they mobilize huge, you see, armed forces with nuclear weapons and go on their war exercises every year. If you see the map, the Korea is such a small country. You see, so with that small territory, if that kind of war exercise all of a sudden turn into a full-scale war, there can be a war just in a day. You see? So we have to be very vigilant against this American movement. That is the reason. So we tried very hard to find the right solution to remove the American nuclear threat against the DPRK, but we failed. So we reached the final conclusion that it is the only way to develop our own nuclear weapons so that Americans can lend their ears to us. Otherwise, they will not. If you see the history of World War or Second World War back, the Americans, the only reason which stopped the second use of nuclear weapons by Americans is the development of nuclear weapons by Soviet Union. Even there was no other country in the world who have nuclear weapons, Americans even do not hesitate to use it on Japan. They used twice it. But once there is a nuclear weapon which can counterbalance Americans, which made Americans not use it. So if we do not have, you see, nuclear Detterent, nuclear weapons, Americans can use it at any time they want, because during the Korean War, President Eisenhower warned DPRK several times that they would use nuclear bomb against DPRK. So we finally conclude that nuclear, by developing of nuclear force by DPRK, is the only way to counter the Americans' nuclear threat. And we clearly clarified to Americans, if American government want to make a peace treaty, that means now Korea is technically war still, so Americans can start war at any moment they can. So we want to change the present armistice treaty into peace treaty. We want to get the guarantee by Americans they will not use nuclear weapons on Korean Peninsula. We want to make a kind of agreement and a treaty with Americans by dictating all those things in the document which can bind Americans. But Americans so far still refuse to sign that kind of the documents with DPRK, because they think that according to American nuclear policy, it is a kind of no acknowledging, no denying. So they will not make any commitments on their usage of nuclear weapons. They think that American nuclear policy is that American government has always the right of preemptive strike with their nuclear weapons. America has the right to use nuclear weapons for preemptive purpose. And if Americans judge that there is a necessity to use these weapons, then they will use it. That is the law of America. So that's why still America refused to sign this kind of the peace treaty with us. But we are pushing very hard. if you want us to keep up our nuclear program, then you should sign peace treaty with us. We want a peace on Korean Peninsula. If Americans are really serious on stability and peace on Korean Peninsula, then there is no reason for the Americans to refuse of having this kind of mechanism rather than, the armistice mechanism on Korean Peninsula. So we are still pushing very hard Americans. We told Americans that nuclear development of nuclear program is not the real purpose for us. Our real purpose is to bring the permanent peace and stability. The reason why we have it, because Americans forced us to choose this way. So that's why if you want remove our nuclear weapons, then you should commit yourself not use nuclear weapons against us. That is the only way. But America is still refused to do that.
Right.